where we spoke to the bodyguard of Sushant Singh Rajput, a man by the name of Newstrack, who was employed by Sushant for more than a year. His employment ended in early 2019. And now what's very important in this investigation is that Newstrack reveals that Sushant Singh Rajput was a coke addict, that very often when they were in cars, Sushant was very paranoid about the police finding out that he had drugs in his car. They wanted him to be very careful, so much so that when they were filming Dhoni, they used to keep the drugs hidden inside the bag in Sushant's car. So Jamshed Khan, Hizbullah and Nitin Jain from the India Today Special Investigation Team are currently in Mumbai, and they spoke to the bodyguard of Sushant Singh Rajput from 2018 to 2019, and he reveals what he saw around that time. This is an India Today exclusive.
A drug angle in Sushant Singh Rajput's life. Riya Chakrabarti's alleged WhatsApp chats lend credence to claims the actor was addicted. Remember, his cook Neeraj, in his police statement, has claimed that he would roll marijuana cigarettes for his employer. The drug link to the Rajput saga has gone stronger. An India Today investigation has caught a former bodyguard of the late actor on camera, reinforcing claims about the actor's addiction to banned substances. Meet Newstrack, the personal security escort of the Bollywood star. The actor's former bodyguard told India Today's investigative reporters that his boss consumed charas and marijuana. Listen in to this startling conversation.
दारू ड्रग्स
कौन सा ब्रांड पीते थे?
नहीं, सब ब्रांडेड ही था।
पार्टी इनके घर पे होती थी या ये घर पे करते थे? कौन कौन आता था उसकी पार्टी में?
पार्टी में कोई ऐसा मैंने कोई बड़ा आदमी तो नहीं देखा, कोई लड़कियां बाहर से आ जाती थी।
बाहर से मतलब?
विदेश से क्या पता नहीं कहाँ से आती थी।
मतलब कितने लोग होते थे पार्टी में?
पार्टी में 5-6 लोग होते थे
और रात भर चलती थी।
हाँ, ऐसा कोई बहुत बड़ी पार्टी नहीं कि एकदम ज़्यादा सब पी के बस नाचना ही है, ऐसा नहीं है।
ड्रग्स भी लेते थे?
ड्रग्स नहीं, उस टाइम पे तो चरस गांजा लेते थे सिगरेट में भर के वो ऐसा लेते थे।
आपको कैसे?
हाँ, सभी लेते थे, सभी रूम पे तो और भी जन पे लेते थे। सुना मैं ये था कि बहुत महंगा आता था वो, और मैंने ये बात भी एक बार किया था। मैं बोला था कि इतना पियेंगे अच्छा नहीं करके।
बोला आपने सुशांत को?
मैंने उनको नहीं बोला, दूसरे को बोला। मतलब इतना पीना अच्छा नहीं करके, नुकसान है, आदमी मेंटली डिस्टर्ब हो जाएगा धीरे धीरे। तो एक बंदे ने बोला बोले ऐसा नॉर्मल नहीं है, ये बहुत महंगा वाला है और अच्छा वाला है, इंडियन नहीं है, ऐसा बोला।
वो कितने टाइम तक रहा? शराब?
हाँ, तो कौन बना होगा तरफ से? कोई वो एक बंदा था अब ऐसे सभी लोग बनाते थे वहाँ, जो स्टाफ थे ना 2-3 लोग, वो लोग बनाते थे तंबाकू। हम लोगों को ये बात ध्यान बोलते थे, मैनेजर भी और दूसरे भी ये ध्यान रहते कि गाड़ी में कभी रहे नहीं, कभी कोई चेकिंग हुई तो पकड़ा जाए तो गाड़ी में कभी।
You heard Rajput's former bodyguard endorsing claims his star employer was addicted to charas. Newstrack also insisted Rajput was temperamental.
जैसे इनका ऐसा है कि बोल नहीं सकते 10 मिनट के बाद क्या मूड होगा। अगर हम लोग कहीं अगर शूट पे जा रहे, कभी भी कुछ भी मांग ले तो फिर अचानक से कैंसिल हो जाता था। उनका मूड हो गया कहीं जाने नहीं तो कैंसिल हो गया। शूट बहुत बार ऐसा हो गया कि शूट पे गए, वहाँ सब सेटअप लग गया, सब कुछ हो गया, शूट कैंसिल हो गया।
क्यों?
इनका मूड नहीं है तो तबीयत ठीक नहीं बोलती है, ऐसा हो गया। नाइट शूट असल में बहुत बार कैंसिल भी करते थे। बॉय तो मेरे टाइम पे ही कम से कम 4-5 बॉय चेंज हो गए थे।
चेंज होने की वजह?
अचानक से निकाल देते थे।
किस बात पे?
कुछ भी मतलब गलती बेचारे की नहीं होती।
Mushtaq spoke highly about Rajput on other networks. But when our reporters met him, posing as researchers for a biopic on the actor, this is what he had to say.
उस टाइम पे तो इंटरव्यू में ऐसा था कि बैड नहीं बोल सकते थे, सब बूटी तारीफ ही किया। क्या करेंगे? लोग ने तो हमारा पुतला जला।
मुश्ताक भाई अब हम
There's probably more to his story than meets the eye. Over to the Narcotics Control Bureau for its probe into the alleged role of drugs in Rajput's life, or maybe even death. A report by Jamshed Khan, Mohammad Hizbullah and Nitin Jain for India Today's Special Investigation Team.
The latest piece of information that we've got is that the Narcotics Control Bureau has filed a case against Riya Chakravarti, Siddharth Patani. They will now be probing the drug angle. In fact, Deputy Director of Operations of the Narcotics Control Bureau, KPS Malhotra, is being sent to Mumbai to take charge of this case. Team of officers from the Delhi and the Mumbai unit will be investigating. Malhotra and his team from Delhi will head to Mumbai on Friday. And what's driving this new angle in the Sushant Singh Rajput death mystery are messages accessed from Riya Chakravarti's WhatsApp chats. These go back to 2017, 2019, 2020, where there are references to Riya Chakravarti asking for drugs. So she's reaching out to some people, asking them to arrange drugs. There's also one message in which she's talking about how Sushant Singh Rajput is addicted to drugs and how she hopes to wean him away from weed. Now, all this will be probed by the Narcotics Control Bureau that's filed a case against different provisions of the NCP Act. Here is the other big story we're tracking on the news right tonight.
One mysterious death, multiple suspects, and even more twists and turns. Abetment to suicide, money laundering, and now a sensational drug angle has exploded. The Sushant Singh Rajput death case has seen its biggest and the most massive development yet. The Riya Chakrabarti drugs link. India Today has exclusively accessed deleted WhatsApp chats of Riya Chakrabarti from 2017, 2019 and 2020 that point at a drug link to Sushant Singh Rajput's girlfriend. Was Sushant drugged by Riya? In 2017, texting a man called Gaurav Arya, Riya asked if he had MD, a party drug commonly known as ecstasy. She also says that she's not done too many hard drugs so far. The 2019 deleted WhatsApp chat that has been retrieved by probe agencies between Riya and Jaya Saha, a talent manager, puts the actor under more suspicion. On November 25th, 2019, Jaya Saha told Riya, add 4 drops in coffee, tea or water and let him sip it. Give it 30-40 minutes to kick in. Jaya Saha has now been summoned by ED. Did Sushant Singh Rajput know he was given drugs? The January 2020 WhatsApp chat between Riya and Sushant's ex-manager, Shruti Modi, provides more details on the drug angle. In the chat, Riya explains how Sushant had a major breakdown and how she was trying to get Sushant to quit marijuana. But in April 2020, the conversation between Samuel Miranda, Sushant's house manager, and Riya Chakrabarti proves that the consumption of drugs was definitely far from over. Samuel informed Riya that the stuff is over and that if they should get more from her brother, Shoaib Chakrabarti's friend. India Today has accessed more explosive chats between Riya, Jaya Saha and Shruti Modi from November last year. In the chat, Jaya Saha says she's sending CBD oil to Waterstone. Waterstone was the resort where Sushant and Riya was staying for a few months. And that's not all. On May 1st this year, Samuel Miranda, Sushant's house manager, sought 17,000 rupees to source 2 bags of weed. The sensational drug angle has come up just weeks after Sushant's family claimed that he was overdosed by Riya.
Well, as far as the family is concerned, there was definitely some indication that he was being overdrugged, and that is what we have said in the FIR also. Now it looks like it is not prescription drug, it's a banned drug. And this revelation is very, very serious, because now this will lead to Narcotics Control Bureau entering into this picture, and they will have to now investigate the back-end suppliers also and the consumers. So both sides, there will be a chain of people involved.
The Narcotics Control Bureau will now investigate the explosive drug angle in the Sushant Singh Rajput death mystery. The NCB has booked Riya Chakrabarti, her brother Shavik, Shruti Modi, Jaya Saha and Gaurav Arya. But the big question is, was Sushant aware that his girlfriend Riya and house manager Samuel Miranda were arranging drugs? Was Riya's brother the one sourcing drugs? Were Sushant Singh's drinks spiked? Was Sushant given drugs to compromise with his mental abilities? Questions that the probe agencies will now have to answer. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what we've got are messages of Riya Chakrabarti where she's asking for drugs. She's being told by friends that drugs are getting over, that she should arrange them through her brother's friend. And we've also got the video testimony of Sushant Singh Rajput's former bodyguard, where he confirms that Sushant Singh Rajput himself was a charas addict and that she's trying to get him away from drugs. Joining us to help distill all these multiple elements that have broken through the day-to-day. And remember, this is just one of those stories we just keep unraveling with every passing hour. I'm joined by Dr. Anjali Chhabria. She's a well-known psychotherapist. Works with those who have been under the influence of different kinds of drugs and helps them wean away, so she can tell us what she makes of these messages and the mental state that they seem to suggest. We've got Nasir Abdullah, actor, who joins us. Also Ankit Acharya is a former personal assistant of Sushant Singh Rajput. We've got Ellen Rao, former Delhi Police Special Cell officer. Also, most importantly, he's worked a lot on drug cartels. So he can give us some sense of what these drugs are and how easily or difficult it is to get them. Dhanraj Vanjari joins us, former Mumbai police officer. So I want to go across to Anjali Chhabria first. Dr. Chhabria, in these messages that we just put out in India Today, Riya Chakrabarti is asking for drugs, and now the NCB seems to be suggesting that she was consuming these drugs, that she's part of some kind of a drug cartel, that she in fact there's one message where she's being told by one of Sushant's associates that get drugs from your brother. So what are you making of what's come out into the public domain so far?
So, I think the CBI is doing a great job in unraveling these mysteries. But what I would like to highlight today is that actually all these messages just show that today a lot of youth in India are taking these substances. And I think that is more important, that we need to be aware that people consume a lot of these substances, whether it is together at parties, as what you guys were suggesting, or whether it is taking the help of others, friends, family, whatever it is, to get these drugs. And I think this is extremely important because one case has highlighted a lot of effects.
Nasir Abdullah, you've got the Narcotics Control Bureau team coming in on Friday. They're in fact, and because Riya Chakrabarti, Siddharth Patani are around, they're now building a case against the NCB, against Riya Chakrabarti, for having been involved in arranging these drugs, and obviously they will probe whether Riya was consuming these drugs herself.
Okay, I just wanted to say one thing very, very straightforwardly first, and I'd like not to be interrupted because I'll be through inside of a minute. The first thing I wanted to say is that drugs are available all over India, in all the cities, all the metros, it's all over the place, and there are all kinds of new stuff, and they're being used. I don't use them, but I know who happens to use them. I've used them a bit. The simpler, like this stuff like 35 years ago, you know, a joint or two. The other thing is, there is this heavy talk about dropping 2 drops into a cup of tea. And I know why you do that. I know when you do that. It is a CBD oil, which is an extract of actually marijuana, very concentrated, very authentic, very pure, does not actually get you intoxicated, but it has been recommended by the doctors all over the world, especially in Europe. In California, it is available over the counter. Here it would not be. It is for the people who have immense pain and who have actually gone through a cancer or multiple sclerosis, or they have other problems and dropsy. You know, it's amazing because a dear friend of mine, my brother's friend actually, a yoga master, she had a cancer. So she brought all these to India with her, the cartridges of the marijuana extract. And they have a form with it, they have all the explanations, you know, the whole thing. And it helps greatly because if you take the painkillers, they kill the health of the stomach. It destroys the stomach. So to avoid having to deal with an upset like a stomach all the time, this is beautiful because it also makes you feel slightly euphoric, mildly intoxicated, and you need 2 drops literally. And it's very strong but pure and does not create any other the side effects. So I know this, I've seen it, I even used it once for an ailment. I gave it to somebody who was in a lot of pain and they were like very happy. So let's not think this is one of those MDMA or meow or whatever drugs you want to call it, or cocaine. No, it is CBD oil, which means it is a marijuana extract, and there are various strengths, 5 mg and 10, etc.
No, but the key thing there is while it's legal in some companies, Nasir, and that's where I want Ellen Rao to come in and give us legal perspective. It's not necessarily, Mr. Rao, legal in India. And also, is it under prescription? Is it under prescription? All of that is now what the Narcotics Control Bureau will look at. Mr. Rao, you're an expert. You've dealt with drug cartels. You've looked at these messages, the different kinds of drugs that they're talking about. What do you make of Ria's messages? What kind of a case can the NCP build?
Rahul, so far as I could reveal this thing that the ED was investigating all these cases, and the WhatsApp messages were being probed by ED, and then they came to know about there are some messages about some narcotics being delivered or being supplied to someone else. So now they have given this case to NCB because the NCB is the specialized agency to deal with such type of cases. Now come up the narcotics cases that this is an act. This is a narcotic and narcotic drugs and psychotropic substance act. It was enacted in 1985, and in this case, in this act, there are some provisions of how to deal with these type of narcotics. Like this, some narcotics are cannabis kind of these, and some are the manufactured drugs. And so many drugs are being supplied on a license, and the drug department deals with such type of cases. And most of the drugs are banned drugs, so that these are covered in there is a schedule in the NDPS Act. There are scheduled more than 100 drugs are prescribed in this schedule. Then each and every drug is detailed, and the quantity is also explained, that how much is the commercial quantity, how is non-commercial quantity, and the punishment is also accordingly is done, prescribed in the NDPS Act. So now now come to the part in this Sushant Rajput's case. Then if these drugs are being supplied, or there are some evidences that these were supplied in the past, and who are the persons who were supplying it, or what type of drugs they were supplying. Now there are some news that MD drugs were being mentioned in that every drug has its chemical name. MD drug has a methylene Dioxymethamphetamine is the chemical name, and similarly so many other drugs have their own chemical names separately, and these drugs are called manufactured drugs, and there is separate offences. Like the cocaine has some other offences that is also common under manufactured drugs. Heroin is also under manufacturing drugs, and then this charas, hashish, and all these things are called as made of cannabis. And these all drugs, if they are permitted by the license, then there is no offence. And if they are not permitted by the license, and there are so many drugs, there is no license is permitted. That like in opium, that the permission is given to the agriculture.
But I just want to tell our viewers, and that's where the doctor can come in, that Ria in one of these messages has suggested that she gave CBD, that's cannabidiol oil, to the actor. Now the NCP has filed a case. Now there are companies in Mumbai which take licenses from the government and make hemp and marijuana based medicines. Now CBD is given to cancer patients, it's given to patients of depression. So what we need to keep in mind, Dr. Chabria, before letting anybody's imagination go wild, is A, try and establish if this is under prescription, if they had a proper valid doctor's prescription, and if this was for depression and that's why this was being arranged. So all of that also, Dr. Chabria, would need to be considered and looked at. What are you making of this?
Right. So see, first of all, CBD, marijuana, cannabis, all over the world may be used for different things. In India, it is used for recreational use and it is illegal. Okay, doctors are not prescribing CBD oil, at least legally. It's not given on prescription medication. You mentioned a lot of drugs. One was, of course, you mentioned marijuana in your reports. You'll have also mentioned MDMA and other stuff, right? Now, of course, these messages will have to be linked. But actually what is interesting over here is that a lot of youth believe that, just because it is used in rest of the world, that we can use it over here, and do not realize that there are complications of these drugs. In fact, a lot of these drugs, even if they're called so-called soft drugs like CBD is, and it is used for treatment of cancer and all, can actually cause psychosis. If you go and research marijuana-induced, cannabis-induced psychosis or cannabis-induced amotivation syndrome, a lot of people don't know this, but actually this is what happens. So people may take it to relieve anxiety, but actually land up with delusional behavior, with paranoid behavior, and with actual psychosis. So I think this is something that needs to be
Ankit Acharya, as somebody who's been associated with Sushant Singh Rajput in the past, what do you make of Bodyguard Mushtaq, who says that he used to carry drugs for his master, that Sushant would have drugs hidden inside the cricket bag when they were filming Dhoni, that he was very worried that the police shouldn't find out that the drugs in the car, never wanted the cigarettes just to be lying around, always wanted them to be inside some bag so nobody got wind of the fact that he was on drugs? Ankit Acharya?
Apparently.
Okay. Yes, Nasir, go on.
Grass is heavy and can lead to psychotic problems. Heavy ingestion can lead to psychotic problems, which it seems he might have developed as a result of overuse if he's been using it for a long time. I have seen other people with that problem. It seems to help them a lot, but in the years to come, also depending upon how much they've used, it can create severe psychological problems. There may be hallucinations, there may be intense anger against unprovoked with anybody. I've seen the people with that problem develop because of overuse. So the idea is use a little and you're safe. It's like alcohol. Use a little, you're fine. Otherwise, your life and your family will be destroyed. So it goes the same way with everything, and addiction is a big issue. I mean, smoking cigarettes is a huge addiction. it has been compared, the addiction has been actually compared to heroin. They say it's easier to give up heroin or cocaine than smoking cigarettes. Would you believe that? And it's a fact. I've been a smoker. I suffered greatly. I just couldn't get off it. And I've got friends who have the same problem. Amazing. So this is the mildest of the drugs. I mean, the tobacco is the mildest of the drugs.
No, but that's not the only drug that's mentioned. There is also MD, which is mentioned.
You have MDM,
which is called Meow Meow, and I have a report on it in just a moment. Yeah, so there's cocaine that's mentioned, there's heroin that's mentioned. So it's not just the light stuff. If what is being said, which is why, remember, we're not trying to judge what was going on. It's a proper investigation that needs to happen. Correct. Ankit Acharya, आप रहे हैं सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के साथ. ये जो बॉडीगार्ड मुश्ताक हैं, इनका जो स्टेटमेंट है जिसमें वो कह रहे हैं कि he actually did drugs. In fact, I want to show you this report. This is very important. I want all our viewers to pay a lot of attention to this, because this investigation that I'm about to show you was shot today. It's shot literally 50 meters away from Sushant Singh Rajput's house. Literally 50 meters away from Sushant Singh Rajput's house. Well-known drug peddler in that area tells our reporter Munish Pandey what's in the market, how much is it available for, what's the going rate for different drugs in that area. And now, and that's the point I think the doctor was making, Dr. Chabria, where she says that this is so readily available in those areas and so widely consumed. And Sushant Singh Rajput and a lot of young people maybe thought that there's no big deal, but then what we also see is that he became an addict, which is what is coming out. But take a look at this report about the different kinds of drugs that are available and their going rate today. This report that you're about to see was shot today. It's very significant because after these revelations came out, just right next to where Sushant says, about 50 meters away, and when my reporter told us this, I for a moment could believe it. I said, are you sure? This is like about 50 meters away from where Sushant says, and this is today, and he knows that this story is on TV and all across, and yet with complete fearlessness, he's out on the market, he's peddling his drugs. Aapko maal chahiye, aap batao. Take a look at this.
The Riya Chakrabarti drug link in Sushant Singh Rajput death mystery has put the spotlight back on Bollywood's dirty secret. India Today dug deeper to investigate the drug angle in the Sushant death case, to probe the drug nexus in Tinseltown. And we did not have to go too far. We found a drug peddler just meters away from Sushant Singh Rajput's Bandra residence. And it took India Today's investigation team less than a minute to reach them. The drug peddler deals in all kinds of drugs, even the ones mentioned in the deleted WhatsApp chats of Riya Chakrabarti. In one of her chats, Riya asks for synthetic psychotropic drug MDMA, also known as ecstasy. The drug is commonly used at rave party as a recreational drug. When India Today asked this drug peddler near Sushant's house about MDMA, he said that it was the best for parties and also showed us the drug.
कोक है क्या आपके पास?
कोक है ना?
क्या रेट है?
एक नंबर, 1 ग्राम 7,000.
1 ग्राम 7,000 रुपए का? महंगा नहीं है?
हाँ?
महंगा नहीं है?
एक नंबर माल है भाई.
दिखाओ.
चक्के देखो.
दिखाओ दिखाओ.
एक नंबर माल है भाई, गोवा का है. ये बम्बई का थकेला माल नहीं है.
और एमडी है?
एमडी है ना.
क्या रेट है एमडी?
1700 जैसा आपके लिए कर देंगे 1600. पार्टी के लिए 1 नंबर है.
पार्टी के लिए एमडी 1 नंबर है. और नकली हुआ तो माल?
गारंटी अपनी.
गारंटी फिर कहाँ खोजूंगा मैं तुमको?
हो ना, कॉल करना. जल्दी जल्दी करो भाई.
A hard drug available for big parties on the streets of Mumbai. But this is not all. Another drug mentioned in Riya Chakrabarti's deleted WhatsApp chats is hash, a common name for weed or marijuana. When India Today's investigation team inquired about the availability of weed, the Bandra drug peddler quoted various varieties of the drug.
गांजा है? वीड है?
है ना, वीड है. अमेरिकन वीड है भाई.
अमेरिकन वीड?
अमेरिकन वीड. बहुत महंगा.
क्या रेट है?
बहुत महंगा है.
क्या रेट क्या है?
6,000.
6,000 रुपए कहाँ का है?
यूएस
यूएस का है?
यूएस का
है तुम्हारे पास अभी?
हाँ?
है तुम्हारे पास?
है
दिखाओ। ये अमेरिका का है?
कोर्स देखो, हाँ बस सुन लो।
ये अमेरिका का है?
अमेरिका यूएस।
सस्ता वाला है कोई?
नहीं सस्ता फिर कश्मीरी चरस आएगा 4,000, मनाली 8,000।
पेटीएम करूंगा, लोगे क्या?
पागल है क्या? फिर पेटीएम कोई करता है? कैश है ना भाईजान, कैसी बात कर रहे?
कैश नहीं है ना भाई अभी।
कैसी बात कर रहे यार, तुम मेंटल है क्या थोड़ा?
पेटीएम नहीं लोगे?
टाइम वेस्ट करा, पागल है क्या? पेटीएम कोई करता है?
अच्छा ठीक है, मैं मंगा रहा हूँ, कैश मंगा रहा हूँ। मेरे को ये बताओ कि
This drug peddler, spotted just meters away from Sushant Singh Rajput's house, had a full rate card for the drugs that he had on offer. The dealer also revealed the Bollywood drug nexus. He admitted that drugs are supplied to Bollywood actors, but it's usually their staff who takes deliveries of contrabands.
ये फिल्म वाले लोग लेते हैं क्या? ये लोग
कैसी बात कर रहे? लेते ना भाई,
लेते हैं,
सब लेते हैं।
किसी को बेचा है कभी?
ड्राइवर और उन लोग के खास लोग आते हैं, उन लोग चल के आएंगे क्या? अकेला है क्या?
वो सब ड्राइवर लेके आते
ड्राइवर
हैं।
उन लोग के जो खास लोग आते हैं। अभी कहाँ
ये सब
क्या?
ये सब जो चल रहा है अभी, सुशांत वाला देखा है?
वो सब पता नहीं, वो सब फालतू की बात मत करो भाई।
India Today investigation into the Bollywood drug cartel has also revealed the secret code names that are used for drug deals. Cocaine, also called Coke, Flake, Charlie and Snow, is sold with the code name Baji Rao. MDMA is codenamed Mastani. LSD is sold by the name of Dalai Lama. Hashish is called Draupadi or Shiv Darshan. A heady and deadly cocktail of money, fame and drugs. The dark side of Bollywood now out in the open. But was this drug angle behind Sushant Singh Rajput's death too? With Munish Pandey in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
For a perspective on the new revelations in the Sushant Singh Rajput death mystery, I'm joined now by Vikas Singh, the lawyer of Sushant's family. Now you've got on the one side charges of Sushant having accessed and consumed drugs and in fact being an addict. You've got Ria's messages where she's trying to arrange for drugs for herself or for Sushant. That needs to be probed by the Narcotics Control Bureau. As the lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput, what are you making, Vikas Singh, of these new revelations?
Well, Rahul, firstly, I have an objection to your question. It is not that Sushant Singh is getting entangled in a drug. His case may be getting entangled in a drug issue, but Sushant Singh was not ever in drugs. Now, the narrative which is emerging from whatever disclosure that has come since yesterday is that Ria was wanting to administer some drugs to him without his knowledge and without his consent, because that kind of a message will not indicate that he is aware of it. That kind of a message will indicate that it is being given to somebody and the effect will come after 30-40 minutes. So obviously to give it to him in a glass of water or a coffee is to camouflage the way it is to be given, rather than saying that this drug is to be given with so-and-so, which is, you know, like you say, you have this medicine with so-and-so. This is not one of those narratives. The narrative is give it in his coffee, give it in his water, so that it will go inside and then this will. Now, Rahul, the whole case that the family had initially made was that he is being overdrugged. That's what we say in the FIR. Now, when the overdrugged issue was raised, basically the thought process was that these are prescription drugs which have been given overdose, and that is why his anxiety level is high and he is not in a position to be calm. The way
No, but we also had Vikas Singh, the bodyguard of Sushant Singh Rajput, tell us in that investigation that we carried that Sushant was consuming drugs, that he had drugs hidden in his car, in bags, in fact, in that cricket bag as well when he was shooting Dhoni. So it's not just Ria arranging for drugs potentially for herself, maybe overdrugging Sushant, but the bodyguard now tells us, who was with Sushant for a year plus, that Sushant used to regularly consume drugs.
Well, there are two things, Rahul. Is this the bodyguard who was there with Sushant prior to the one Riya removed and kept later, or was he the one which was kept by Riya later? That will make a huge difference. If it was the one before the one engaged by Riya, then probably there is a need to answer this charge. If it is the one kept by Riya, then there is no need to answer this charge. And one more thing, Rahul. If you look at the the personality of Sushant Singh Rajput, the way he was into exercise, fitness, yoga, meditation, that kind of a person normally doesn't do drugs. And as far as the family is concerned, he never did drugs. So this I don't need to answer unless one is aware that this charge is just been set up for an oblique purpose, or this charge is
no, but that's
charge.
not entirely true. There are so many people who are sports stars or film stars who are on the outside supremely fit, who are known to consume all manner of recreational drugs, including really serious, intense drugs as well. So it's not as if because you work out or you have a good personality, you're not likely to take drugs. There is no connection. Secondly, these charges are by Mushtaq, who worked with SSR from early 2018 to February 2019, and he's on camera saying, I did this, I carried the drugs for him. So in that sense, it's a confession from him about having arranged these drugs and ferried them around for Sushant, and that makes him also liable under various provisions of the Narcotics Control Bureau Act.
Well, I have no idea about this Mushtaq, because I'm definitely aware that there was a guard who was there till January of 20 who was removed by Riya, and somebody was kept in place by Riya. But I have no comments to make, because our information is that Sushant never used to do drugs. So maybe whatever this Mushtaq fellow is saying, maybe it was being brought in for people around him. But it will be wrong for me to speculate unless I have the full facts on this.
And this is what I want to make clear for our viewers. Whether Mushtaq is telling us the truth or not is something which we would rather that the investigative agencies try and determine. And remember, when you process some of the facts that we put out, for example, that that all these hard drives were destroyed, it's known very often when you're in a celebrity relationship, or even when you got young people in relationships, when there's a bad breakup, very often they want to delete whatever images and photos and videos they may have of holidays together, so that there's no shaming on social media later, and they just want to be safe and assured. So is there a conspiracy angle behind these hard drives being smashed and deleted, or is it just because it was a celebrity breakup and they wanted to be sure and cover their backs? Those are matters that need to be investigated. We are covering the story as objectively as we possibly can. There is huge interest in this, and we are doing our best to present you with all sides of the perspective rather than approach the story from a predetermined mindset. We're slipping into a break. I'll have more for you on the other side. Stay with us.